Welcome, everybody, inside the coach's office. I'm your host, Dan Murphy, alongside my co host, Brian Barnes. And Brian, we're finishing up the week of Thanksgiving and a rough week for the Detroit sports fan. But just for personally, how was your Thanksgiving?
Oh, things are good. It was very low key, and as you get older, you like that better. The kids aren't as young, and there's not as much travel on our end, so it was nice to just go to one place and stop and just be in for the day. So, how about you?
Yeah, well, I'm lucky that both my side of the family and my wife's side of the family, they're both close. So we're able to
Mm.
see all of our family each holiday. So that's always really nice to spend time with family and friends this time of year. But I'd be lying if I said that the Lions game didn't damper things. I think not only for me and my family, but I think across the state of Michigan. Just a very frustrating game. The Lions fall 31-24 to the Packers, their second loss to the Packers this season, drops them to 7-5. Things are looking pretty dire for the Detroit Lions right now. Brian, what were your overall thoughts on that game?
Well, it's pretty funny you said that because one of our family members, our sister-in-law, she's from Delaware, and she's become a gigantic Lions fan, and just any little thing you say negative, I mean, I get the evil eye, right? And so it's very hard for me not to say all the things that I wanted to say. But yeah, man, I'm with you, and I'm with all the fans in the state of Michigan. There's trouble on the horizon. I said that it was pretty important that these next three home games, you win them out and you're 9-4 and you're feeling pretty good, and you at least split with the Packers, right? But now it's twice you've played the Packers, and like physically they were better, right? They were better when you were 100% healthy, and they were better definitely, this Thursday when you're not. And now, like you said, uphill battle, right? Outside looking in on the playoff picture because the teams ahead of them keep winning. And so now they've got a tough one next Thursday. Initially when we talked, on one of our shows, I thought the Lions had another week and a half. They weren't playing on that Sunday, so it's kind of another turnaround, just a week, and they're playing Thursday night against Dallas, who had a nice win the other day against the Chiefs. They're playing a lot better, and you're probably not going to have Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he's not going to be, or he won't be 100%. So it's just not looking good. And I think one of the frustrating things for me is sometimes, when people say, don't you remember what it was like? And the Lions were bad forever, and we should be grateful that we're 7-5 and things of that nature. But like expectations can change, and they obviously have changed the last couple of years, right? And you were hoping after last year's disappointing season, right, they would respond better. And like again, we talked about the schedule, we talked about staying healthy. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for it, but not good. I mean, if you're not a playoff team, that's horrendous. I mean, that's bad after what they've been the last couple of years. Like that's not that. I mean, there's no. Well, that's okay. No, like that's awful. Like if they're not a playoff team, and what scares me is if they don't win at home next Thursday against Dallas, gonna have a hard time going into LA winning. Talk about that. They're 7-7, and then like what are they playing for? And you could argue that almost right now. I mean, the players will never say it, and Dan Campbell will never say it, but the health and then the Frank Ragnow situation, it's like, man, all that good feeling that I talked about that last one, that the Lions needed some good news, and it's gone, right? It's gone, and so.
Yeah.
Like I would love to say this is one of those feelings where like, okay, they get into the playoffs and they get hot, or like, this is the way it's supposed to be. It was supposed to be hard, and they learned how to win these tough games, but it just doesn't feel that way. Like they're beat up, and you wonder how much emotionally they're beat up too, as well. So because like you said before, like they're still human, and it's a tough game, and there's a lot goes into it, but. Overall, no, it's not. I mean, there's never a good loss, but there are some weeks you can say, that was a good football game, lost to a good team. But I think what makes it worse is, like I said, the teams ahead of them, have won. And the fact that the Bears went into Philadelphia and took it to the Eagles is just another, like, man, like they're getting better than they were, you know what I mean? And the Lions aren't. And
Yeah, seeing Ben Johnson with the celebration in the locker room after beating the Eagles, a team the Lions couldn't beat. The Lions looked like they got, out toughed, out physicaled against the Eagles, and then to see the Bears take it to the Eagles in Philadelphia, and then seeing Ben Johnson ripping his shirt off, doing the whole celebration, and they're in first place. Now they're the number 1 seed with the Rams losing today, and it's like, this is not how it was supposed to go. This was not how it was supposed to go for the Detroit Lions.
No, and people aren't. I mean, they're not going to like this, and that's fine. I get it. But what's the big difference between the Bears and the Lions right now?
I would say overall health.
I think what position? I think it's simple.
Offensive line. I mean, I think it's the offensive line. It's the health of the offensive line.
See, I think quarterback. I think Caleb Williams.
But why is Goff struggling? If we're going to say that Goff is struggling, why? It's because he doesn't have the time.
I mean, maybe, but but Caleb Williams could create time. I mean, there's always going to be times for off-platform throws and things like that. And he's got better arm. He's better athletically. They
didn't win the Philly game with Caleb Williams, though. They ran the ball down the throats of the Philadelphia Eagles all game long. That's how they won that game, and that's how the Lions have won games the past few years. They can't do it right now. So they couldn't run the ball against the Green Bay. They tried to run between.
I agree.
They couldn't do it.
No, I agree. Here's my. I guess when people they gave me a hard time about it last year when I said the final 8 playoff teams, I'd have picked 7 other quarterbacks other than Jared Goff to lead your team. There's 2 minutes left to go, and you need one drive. Who are you taking?
That's an issue.
I guess
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna say it's not an issue, but I just don't think that's the.
No,
I think that's down the list.
I agree.
That they have right now.
I think I maybe it's just because my standard of quarterback play is just so big. I don't know. You're right. The health is a problem. The one good thing is that look what happens when you get Jameson Williams touches. Right, he can be explosive, obviously. But yes, the offensive line. But even if the offensive line was rocking, Micah Parsons is still pretty good, right? And they couldn't block him, and that's another
but
angle.
They would be able to run the ball, and that opens up everything. They would give more time for Goff. Yeah, maybe he would get hit a few times from Parsons, probably, but he's not getting hit from the defensive tackles. Right off as soon as he snaps the ball, he got a defensive tackle in his face.
You know what I started.
And Gibbs is getting hit as soon as he gets the ball.
And you know what I started hearing a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of concerns. People starting to question Kelvin Shepard, and the defense hasn't played all that great lately either. The pass rush, right? Aiden Hutchinson, where is he? Right? And I know you say if you question him, it's you're just a Michigan State homer. No, Aiden Hutchinson's a dude. I like Aiden Hutchinson.
They're paying him a ton of money.
But again, you got to perform, man. And that hasn't happened. And yes, of course he's getting chipped, and occasionally he's getting double teamed, and he's got a tight end, and so he's got a wider rush, all that stuff. I mean, yes, all that is in there, but man, you're getting paid like a dude, And give the Packers credit. They schemed up Micah Parsons a little bit, which is pretty cool. He wasn't just coming off the edge. You know what I'm saying? They schemed him up a lot, being an A gap and B gap guy, and that was pretty cool. And obviously, they knew where some mismatches were on the offensive line and took advantage of it. Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely took advantage of the Lions' injuries to the interior offensive line. When you can match up Micah Parsons against a Wesker or Cologne, that's just not even fair. It's just not even fair.
No, not good enough. And now with the Frank Ragnow stuff, it's not like you could hang your hat on that and say, okay, just hang on and steal a win next week and get him back and get healthy, and then we're back. There's no reinforcements, which that whole thing is odd how that played out.
There's about 15 different things that happened this week that we can dive into. I want to stick on the Aiden Hutchinson point for just a second. My concern was always, when they went into the season, they didn't get Za'Darius Smith, and I was wondering why. Eventually we would find out why. His heart wasn't really in playing. He ended up retiring midway through the season, so understandable that they didn't sign him. But to not go out and get anybody, especially not get anybody at the deadline, you're putting so much pressure on Aiden Hutchinson. I don't want to make excuses for him because yes, he's getting paid a ton of money. He got the extension and all that. He's looked at to be the star of the defense, but he is coming off a broken leg, a pretty serious injury, and you're putting a ton of pressure on him to be the sole pass rusher on this defense when you don't go out and get anybody in the offseason, you don't draft anybody, and you don't make a trade at the deadline to go get somebody. I think that directly is negative to Brad Holmes.
Sure it is. I mean, unless they're thinking, like the development of the rest of their defensive line is going to get them to the point where they don't need that additional pass rusher, right, to help Aiden Hutchinson out. That's the only thing I can think of. And like there is some truth to long-term roster construction, right? Like not every position can be loaded. You know what I'm saying? They have money tied into so many other positions. It's hard to be great at every one position. But when you feel like the organization is that close, which is everybody felt, NFC Championship game a couple of years ago, 1 seed last year, like you feel like, let's just go do it. And Micah Parsons is a difference maker. And if he's on the Lions, you know what I mean? Different story. I do think he was the main difference the other day. But you're right.
Yeah. The next thing I want to get into, and I want to throw these stats up here for a second here, Brian, because you look at the stats from this game, it's almost dead even, like across the board, except for one key aspect, and it's the fourth downs. And Green Bay went for it on fourth down 3 times. They got it all 3 times. The Lions were 0 for 2 on fourth down. And some key situations where Dan Campbell, especially in the fourth quarter when they were down 2 scores, goes for it on fourth down. Passes a little bit behind J-Mo. J-Mo probably could have caught it. Goff could have thrown a better pass. They're kind of both at fault. But regardless, the ball falls to the ground. It's turnover on downs when you could have kicked the field goal and cut it to 7 points. And it's starting to come to a point now where these fourth downs were huge for Dan Campbell for a long time. Like they were successful with it more often than not. And it was huge for them. But now they're not. The last 7 fourth downs that they've gone for, they haven't gotten it. And it's people are starting to question, Dan Campbell and whether or not like, hey man, you don't have the offense that you had. You don't have the offensive line that you had. Like you can't continue to make these gambles and these high risk maneuvers when you don't have the horses to do it. No.
And a lot of people, will make comments that I've heard like, that's who he is, and you just got to live with it. You got to take the good and the bad. Right. And or it was a perfect play call. It worked up. He dialed it up right. The player's got to make a play. That's not out of him. Well, in both instances, like that's the risk you take when you go for it on fourth down.
Yeah.
Right. When you put it in, that's the risk you take. And for all the praise you get, you deserve to be criticized. And texting a couple of my coaching buddies with me, and we're just kind of like, God, we're sick of watching it. It just feels like you're watching a 9-year-old football game where they never punt. And they always go for it. It just seems Little League.
Or somebody playing Madden.
Yeah, like, man, like who can field position? What's that, right? Like, that's the frustrating part because in their logic, like, okay, was their defense going to get a stop? Did they feel like I don't know, like, you know what I mean? But it's not like their defense is Swiss cheese, or you know what I'm saying either. It wasn't like they were completely getting gashed the entire time. It's part of the game, and so that I think. That's the hard part to take. And the other thing was,
just to cut in real quick there, Brian, like even if you don't feel totally confident in your defense, you're down 10.
Yeah.
You're not going to score a 10-point touchdown. No. You're going to have to score twice regardless. You're going to have to depend on your defense to get a stop regardless. Yeah. If you don't get it, now you're depending on your defense to get multiple stops.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I mean, we've been talking about this for weeks. I've talked about it for a couple of years, and initially early on, all right, it was kind of cool when the Lions were like kind of the underdog, had to have an identity, they weren't winning games, all that other stuff. Yeah, we like this, Maverick kind of, mindset and coaching style, but I don't. I think it's bit them in the ass too many times. I think again, I've said it before. I'm not saying you're calling for his head to fire Dan Campbell or anything like that, but you can't tell me that that's part of the problem. That's directly part of the problem. Why they've lost a few games and lost games over the years. It just is. And I'll be interested to see, and I've said this before, in college, when you have a college coach like Dan Campbell, for the most part, you get new talent every couple of years, right? You recruit differently, kids graduate and move on, right? Now, of course, a little bit different. They could transfer and move on or whatever. But like the pros, like all they know is Dan Campbell, right? Sooner or later, that's why sometimes it's hard for NFL coaches to last really long, is like your message gets stale over time because these are grown men. And they hear it over and over and over. And then, so I just wonder at what point, like the players still like playing for them, they play hard for them, the culture's great, all that stuff. But at what point are dudes like, oh, dude, come on, like kick the field goal, right? I mean, no player will come out and say that. No player will say it, especially the offensive players, because of course they know we're going to make plays. But at what point do the players like, all right, this message just ain't working? I wonder that. I'm not saying he should be fired. I'm not saying anything like that, but I wonder. I do think these next 5 games or so, is it 5 games we have left, right? 7 and 5. I do think these next 5 games are critical for what the direction of the organization is going. I really do. I'm sorry, I really do.
In terms of what? In terms of the coaching
I think personnel. Do you think? Okay, so let's say realistically, again, like Dallas is no longer a guarantee. Not that it has been, but it's definitely not. Going to LA is not a guarantee. Going into Chicago the last week of the season is not a guarantee. Minnesota feels a little bit better because they're all banged up and garbage right now. But like, what if they're like 8 and 9, or what if they're 9 and 8 and they miss a like? I don't know. They're going to be kicking themselves over that Minnesota loss at home. I just wonder, are you going to run it back again with the same exact crew?
Okay. I'm going to push back on this. Okay. And then we can get, this is another issue that we can get on the backside of this. If the Lions were 100% healthy, what are you looking at their roster? Where would you put their roster in terms of the NFL?
One of the best, but you can't do that. Obviously, that's my point.
But that's the game, though.
But
that's the game. I mean,
every team has guys beat up. Like every team.
I know they do, and that's why there's a lot of teams that you wouldn't expect to be out of it. The Lions are out of it. The Ravens are out of it. Chiefs are out of it. Bills are about to be out of it. Like, although they had a big win today against the Steelers, but they're not going to win their division. Even if they get in, they're going to be on the road the entire way. Those are 4 of the top 5 teams going in.
That's what So I wonder if, you could, I guess, if you're in Buffalo, they could be saying the same thing. Are there going to be, potentially like different changes, right? Or Baltimore, like they've been going through the same thing. Like, it's a good question.
But I even think those teams, in terms of their entire roster, aren't built as well as the Lions are. I think they're more quarterback centric, where the Lions are not necessarily quarterback centric. And maybe that's the problem in some ways. And maybe it kind of goes back to what you talked about with Jared Goff, because he can't carry the team. No. So it's more about the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Mm-hmm. And they need everything together to work. And it did in 2023. And they made it to the NFC Championship game, and they had a 17-point lead and should have made the Super Bowl and probably were the best team that year because everybody was healthy. Yeah. Now, the last 2 years, the entire defense was decimated last year. And this year, the entire offensive line has been decimated. And now Laporte is out. St. Brown is out. The entire offense is falling apart.
Yep. I agree. Yes, I agree. And again, like, Jared Goff is a nice NFL quarterback. Not denying that, right? Top 10 to 15 NFL quarterback. But those 3 guys you just named ahead of him, and people are going to come back with, well, how many Super Bowls has Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson won, right? Fair point, right? But again, I've seen both of those guys put their teams on their back to win games, right? That's my point. You're right. That's my point. And people have said it around here for a while that you just said. If things are perfect around Jared Goff, he plays really well. No doubt. I just think that's the one position in sports where it's like, again, the Tigers could win a World Series without Tarek Skubal. They could. You know what I'm saying? I just think the quarterback position, other than Trent Dilfer the 1 year with the Ravens because they had the best play with the best defense ever, that position you at least have to have elite quarterback play for that entire run. You just do.
It's hard to argue, and you see it the last 2 years when they have injuries, they can't overcome it. And I don't know, it was crazy how they ended up 15-2 last year, but eventually, as we saw in the playoffs, the defense got destroyed. I mean, they got just absolutely torched when it really got serious into the playoffs. They got torched.
Yeah, people don't like hearing that, and they argue with me. Last year against Washington, well, the defense is banged up. They scored X amount of points. I'm like, yeah, you know what? No kidding. And when your quarterback needed to be 100% perfect, how many times did he turn the ball over in his own end zone and throw? You know what I'm saying? Like, sorry, I'm sorry. That's just it is a reality. It is a reality. So,
but that's the problem. I mean, this is how the roster's built. This is how the team is built. And I don't necessarily have a problem with how it's built. The problem is that they're having a rash of injuries that I think is, you're going to have injuries in the NFL, no doubt. But the amount of injuries this team has had the last 2 years, there's some type of issue. And we've brought this up before with Dan Campbell and how physical their practices are, how physical their training camps are, right? We've also talked about how there's been games. There was the San Francisco game last year. There was the Minnesota game 2 years ago where the game meant nothing. There was nothing on the line. They were gaining nothing by winning the game, but yet he still played all his starters. Like, that takes a toll. Like, these games take a toll on you throughout the course of your career, and those hits, they add up. Yeah. And it can take a toll, and eventually it's gonna take a toll on you. And we've seen it with Frank Ragnow. We're seeing it with Decker. We're seeing it, now with St. Brown. Like, all these guys, man. And I think it's a combination of all this that is causing all these injuries, as well as, like, you got to look at, their strength and conditioning staff as well. Like, there's a lot of things they need to take a look at, because this is ridiculous for 2 years in a row to have this amount of injuries.
Yeah, I wonder, like, the strength and conditioning part, like, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of that is universal to a degree. Like, I'm curious, right? To your point, I think there is a lot to be said for the physicality of it from, Monday through Friday. Wayne Fontes, for all the criticism that he got in his career, players loved him because he did want guys to be fresh on Sunday, and so they weren't going, getting after it. And I'm not saying right now, I mean, like, look, we're not there. We're not saying they're going crazy right now, smacking, going live all week. But, like, I think there was a time when he was trying to establish their identity, which was fair, right? And, like, hey, we're physical, we're going to be tough with this, we're going to bite kneecaps and all that stuff, right? And so to that point, absolutely, I agree with them. But I'm with you. You can only take so many hits and give out so many hits as an athlete. You only have so many before you start to break down. And, speaking of identity, I thought about this a little bit, and you mentioned it to it, or you've mentioned it before. What do you think is their identity right now, at least on offense? Because, I mean, you can argue both sides of the ball, but offense, because that's, I think, where the biggest glaring issue is, right? When Ben Johnson was here, you felt like, hey, they could score from anywhere, right? Different formations, different tricks and stuff like that. Okay, and so my thinking was going into this season, like, all right, and I brought this up before, like, maybe don't rely on Jared Goff so much, right? And you have two really good running backs and pound it and things like that. And I do think that's kind of what they're trying to do. But, like, they did it without making the offensive line a priority. Back to your point. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird. So I guess, is their identity still, I mean, I still feel like formation-wise, like we talked about that, 11, 12 personnel and Dan Skipper and Brock Wright, but, like, they don't have the dudes up front to have that identity. It's just it's weird.
Well, and that goes back to the injuries.
Yeah,
I think is their identity, and I think it always has been their identity, is running the football and stopping the run.
But I think if they're healthy, but I think if all those guys are healthy, Glasgow and everybody, I don't know if they're a dominant run team this year. You know what I mean?
Well, and that also goes back to Frank Ragnow's retirement.
Okay.
I think everybody, including them, underestimated how good an important football player Frank Ragnow was to this team.
That is absolutely then the front office, for all the great things they've done, deserve to be criticized for that. Like you can give them a lot of credit for Jahmyr Gibbs and all their whatever, Penei Sewell, 100%. But then if that's the case, then like they deserve to be criticized for that.
Well, I mean, they went into the season moving. Originally it was going to be Tate Ratledge to be center. Yep. And I thought and that was the number one thing I was looking at in training camp. I'm like, let's see how he does. Because that's a lot to put on a rookie. Yep. A Super Bowl contending team, and you're going to have a center be a rookie. That's a lot to put on him. And sure enough, it was like a week into training camp, they made the move. And they put Graham Glasgow to center and put Ratledge back to guard. And I'm like, that's not a good sign. That is not a good sign at all, because that tells me that Ratledge isn't ready. And it tells me that their original plan is already not working.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you add in the injuries, and now Graham Glasgow's hurt. Yep. He had the injury to Mahogany, and you're already going into the season expecting Mahogany to be a stud. He'd only played 5 games last season. So essentially, he's basically a rookie. I mean, going into a second year, but this is his first year really starting. Yeah. And then you're going in with Ratledge starting as a rookie. That's a lot of pressure to put on those guys, man, especially when you're losing Frank Ragnow.
Yeah, Dan, it's not good. I don't know what other in-depth. I mean, it's not good. They're floundering. I mean, I guess the good thing is like they're still a fairly, like they theoretically still have the best player on the field every week in Jahmyr Gibbs. So you know what I'm saying? So there's still some good football left to be played. I just want to I was just going to say, this is that whole leadership and culture thing too. Like, okay, like now this is the first time, because to me, Dan Campbell's first couple of years don't really count, right? Because he's establishing his culture. And now you got your dudes. This is the first time like leadership now is being tested, right? 7-5, you're not going to win the division. Now it's like, okay, like, hey guys, are you ride or die, man? Right? We got 5 weeks, right? We know we're right there. What are we doing these next 5 weeks? So, yeah.
Well, we've been getting on Dan Campbell, and I'm going to continue to get on Dan Campbell because the time management in that game when they were down 10 in the fourth quarter, and they had already gone for it on fourth down and didn't get it. Yeah. Now they got the ball back. There's, I think, about 8 minutes left, right? You're down 10. You got to score twice. Continuing to huddle. They're getting in the line of scrimmage. They're moving guys, putting guys in motion. Brian, they almost got to delay a game, I think, 2 different times on the drive. With the time of the game clock, not only the play clock coming down, the game clock is ticking down. They're running basically a 4-minute offense. They ran off 6 minutes off the clock in that drive, and they ended up having to kick a field goal at the end of it because Goff got sacked.
I want to find you the text message I sent to my buddies because you just said it. I made the comment. I said, are you guys noticing this, or is it just me? The fact that like they're in a hurry, down 2 scores, and they're I said this, down 10, still huddling, still running guys in and out across the formation. And I said, am I wrong? Am I missing something? Like that's exactly what you just said.
I was at my in-laws' house. Yeah, and I'm trying to be calm. Yeah. I'm trying to be calm, but I'm losing my mind because I'm like, not only as a Lions fan, but as a coach, I'm losing my mind. If this was us, Brian, and I'm in the booth and I'm talking to you, you're the play caller, the head coach, I'd be yelling, screaming at you, Brian, we got to go. We're down 2 scores. We got to go. Like, we can't be wasting all this time. We got to go. Yeah. And I can't believe it at the NFL level in a game of this magnitude, to be huddling and taking as much time as they did, play in and play out in that drive. It was mind-boggling.
What was his reasoning at the end? I think that was kind of weird too. Like, didn't he say something like we had to get one stop, or he didn't want to leave them a lot of time? Or wasn't there something, like his reasoning was weird?
I don't know. I'll be honest. I didn't get his quote on that particular aspect, but I'll tell you this. They never got the ball back again.
No.
Green Bay was able to run the entire clock out. Yeah. And a large part of that is due to what the Lions did on their final offensive drive. They took forever to run plays, and they ended up only getting a field goal out of it. But they did cut it to 1 score. Yeah. But you took forever. I've never seen anything like that, down 2 scores to allow the time run down like that. And I mean, I thought they were going to get a delay game a couple times. I mean, that's how bad it was. They ran it down right to the final second on a lot of those plays.
Yeah,
inexcusable.
Yeah, it was frustrating. Slow fourth down possession was intentional. One of the big criticisms, where they had a 13-play, 67-yard drive that bled over 6 minutes. And he said, I know it's frustrating when you're a fan watching, but I know how we needed to play against. What's that? Yeah, no.
I said, yeah, no kidding.
But I know we needed to play how we needed to play against that defensive front. It was about to be playing for the last possession. We were going to do that. I mean, to his point, like, I get this. I do remember him saying, I think, like, okay, when you're in the gun and you're just going to pass the whole time and you're going to hurry up, like, defensive linemen and defensive coordinators can tee off. You know what I'm saying? And Micah Parsons, those guys can tee off. Fair. But, like, it's not like the line don't have a
mean you have to run into 1 second.
Well, I know. I'm with you. And I think they have a good enough screen game that, like, sometimes that, mitigates.
They don't utilize it enough. We've talked about
not
that.
like they have
not utilize their screen game enough.
No, not like they did in the past. But going back to it, the identity part. Like that's something they lost. Ben Johnson, his screen game was awesome. It was really fun to watch. So, all fair. Again, if it works, great. When it doesn't, this is what happened. This is what happens when you're the guy. And there's been some talk too, like is he putting too much on his plate as a play caller and as a head coach? Potentially, right? I mean, at the high school level, I ran into that. Right. You know what I'm saying? That's why guys like you and Dylan and Joey were so important. So like, I didn't have to do all that. And
these are situations where we've talked about, where I would have been in the booth telling you like, hey, maybe for whatever reason you're losing sight of how much time's left or the situation or whatever, because you're so involved in the play calling, trying to make the right play. I would be telling you like, hey, we got to move.
Yeah. Or he's getting a health update about some of his defensive guys or Amon-Ra or whatever, right? Instead, but
isn't that where like a guy like John Morton's supposed to be? That's supposed to be his role, right?
That's why you hired him. I mean, right? It's weird. That's why you hired him. You thought, not good. I don't know if they're getting out of this, man. I don't.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. Like, where do we think they're going? I mean, they got Dallas looks red hot right now. They just beat the Eagles and the Chiefs the last 2 weeks. I mean, Dak's looking good. That offense is looking good. I didn't think it'd be as easy as a game as we thought maybe 3-4 weeks ago.
No, I feel like I'm a flip-flopper and I'm all over the place, which isn't right. But I did say I thought if they could split with Washington and Philadelphia, they'd get to 9-4. And think about it. If you a couple things. If you win in Philadelphia and you beat the Vikings at home, like you can have a game like this against Green Bay and not, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you probably lose the division still, right? But at least it gives you some leeway. You know what I mean? Now there isn't any. And like you said, red hot team coming in. Are the Lions going to get up for it? I was listening to one of the local radio stations, and they had talked about how the previous game, I can't remember who the Packers played, but their defense was on the field about 30 plays less than the Lions defense was. And then you had that short turnaround. And so potentially, I wonder if that, again, had a lot to do with it as well. And now they have it's not a short turnaround, it's a full week, but like they're not going to be 100% healthy for this one either. It's hard to get up for every game and every primetime game. We've talked about that. So this is really 3 primetime games in a row, which is cool. I mean, which is crazy. I don't feel good. I was willing to give them the Vikings loss and be like, all right, it's the NFL. And we had talked about that. That's going to happen. The Eagles lost. Okay. A couple things here and there. You got to correct it. It's on the road, all that stuff. But now though, man, it's like, I don't.
Yeah. I think the issues with the offensive line, and we talked about Goff dealing with pressure. Like, I think he could deal with pressure a little bit better if he's got his security blankets in St. Brown and Laporta.
Yeah.
But with both those guys out, man,
yep.
I just it doesn't look good.
Let me ask you this. Do you trust Dan Campbell and John Morton to scheme up some dynamic plays? I mean, if Ben Johnson was here, I'd say, yeah, absolutely. He's going to scheme up some stuff. I just don't feel that. I just haven't seen it all year. Right.
Well, here's the other issue, Brian, because I mean the offense did score 24. It's not, they weren't terrible. I mean, they were getting good, putting drives together and scoring points. It's that is a big concern of St. Brown being out. Teams can game plan for JMO now. and try to take him out and try to take Gibbs out and try to force the ball to your God knows who's playing tight end and Tom Kennedy and playing a receiver. But the bigger concern above all this is the defense. Yeah. The defense has gotten shredded the last 2 weeks. I mean, absolutely torched the last 2 weeks. And I don't know how to explain. I mean, the defensive line, I mean, they're all there. Like, it's not like those guys are out. And they were non-existent.
No.
I mean, Green Bay was able to run the ball on them. They had absolutely no pressure. Love had all the time in the world in the pocket. I mean,
yeah, it's I don't know if it's scheme. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it's that. But you can't deny what your eyes see, which is zero pass rush. Right? I didn't feel like Jordan Love was in any danger throughout the game, and that's the biggest thing in this league. And so unless
let's look at your defensive line though, real quick. Hutchinson,
yeah,
first season off a broken leg. McNeil,
yeah,
just coming back off from a torn ACL.
Yeah.
Reeder coming back from last year from a torn hamstring I think it was a torn quad. Those are serious injuries, and we haven't seen either one of them really show that they're totally back from those injuries. And again, it goes back to the injuries. I mean, it's injuries across the board that are just wrecking this team.
Yeah. I still wonder though, like, I mean, I didn't think it'd be as glaring as it has been. Kind of this, like, you know, at the trade deadline, Brad Holmes, now the joke is he just kind of said, yeah, we're good. You know, I mean, they're not good. They're not good.
So let's say, I mean, do you think they're going to win this game or not? And are they going to make the playoffs or not?
I'm going to say no on both. I think especially we touched on it a little bit. I think the Frank Ragnow thing was the final nail.
Yeah.
Like I feel like whatever the reason was, how you not know you have a grade 3 hamstring tear or whatever it is, that's like pretty severe stuff, right? Like, whatever, or maybe he realistically, I don't think this, like, I don't think he's going to mentally gear up and say, hey, we're rocking. And then he sees how they play the other day and lose and be like, no, I'm done, you know? But regardless, I think that's a mental nope, I don't.
Yeah. You gave a shot in the arm to not only the fan base, but the locker room. I'm sure those guys were fired up to get Ragnow back. And then you lose to Green Bay. Yeah. And then you find out that Ragnow's not coming back.
Yeah.
And you find out that St. Brown's going to be out for probably a couple of weeks. Like, how many blows can this team take? You know, not only from just in terms of their personnel, not having their guys, but just from an emotional standpoint. Like, how many times can you get up? Like, and do they have the ability to go on a run where they can win 4 or 5 or 5 straight? Like, I don't think they got it, man. I think this is a lost year. I hate to say that.
Me too.
But I think this is a lost year.
So then the question, then you know, we talked about the Tigers having an interesting offseason. This will be an interesting offseason for the Lions too, because their draft pick will probably be in the 20s. So, you know, they'll get an impact player, but how big of an impact at that position, I don't know. And then do they just run it back with their current group, you know? And I think that's like, well, no, the Lions roster is okay, but other teams are good too now. Like they've gotten better. Like we talked about, the division has gotten a lot better, and we knew that. And you know, look at I'm sure Bills fans are saying the same thing. Like, our window is closed. Like, we had our shot and we didn't put the dagger. Like, we didn't go acquire. So whatever.
They're looking back. They had the lead with 14 seconds left. And we couldn't close it out against the Chiefs, just like the Lions are looking back. We had a 17-point lead in the second half, and we couldn't close it out.
Totally. Yep. And that's just the reality of pro sports. And like, you know, again, two things can be right at once. Great things that have been going on. The Lions have given us a lot of entertainment at the last few years, but also they potentially lost.
It's frustrating. I don't think there's going to be huge changes from a personnel standpoint, but I think the biggest question is going to be who's going to call the plays. Because the question is, and I'll ask you this, Brian, and I know we've gone long on this topic, but there's just so much to talk about with the Lions. But it was something I wanted to ask you was, if they go into the offseason, I can't imagine Dan Campbell's going to continue to call plays. I think they're going to look for somebody. But do they stick with their same system, or do they go outside the box and get somebody unique? Like there's so many names you could throw out there, but I'm
Chip
thinking
Kelly's
like
available.
Gruden. I'm thinking like Mike McDaniel if he gets let go from the Dolphins. Some real like innovative offensive minds.
Yeah,
Chip Kelly's another one. He's got his ups and downs, but there's a lot of great offensive minds out there. Do you go outside the system to go out and get one of these guys?
I think that depends on who your quarterback is. Because again, remember, was it last year?
It's going to be Goff. It's going to be Goff.
Was it last year or 2 years ago when Lamar Jackson was having his issues in Baltimore? There was the talk, did the Lions try to acquire Lamar Jackson? Then that limits, I think, your pool of candidates. Because like you've talked about it, you've hammered it every week, his mobility issues. You can't deny it is who he is. So yeah, good question.
But I think that's what's going to be the most fascinating, because I just don't see a lot of major personnel changes.
No, potentially
they're going to depend on their roster, because it is a great roster on paper.
It is,
and I think they're going to depend on these guys coming back healthy. But the big thing is going to be who's going to call the plays going forward.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Good point.
So we can move on from that. Another disappointing game this week. Michigan, Ohio State. And I mean, not shocking in terms of the outcome, but as a Michigan fan, it was definitely disappointing. Michigan falls to Ohio State 27-9. And Brian, what are your just overall thoughts on this outcome?
Well, the outcome, I told you the last time we talked was actually kind of similar to what I thought, right? Like I thought it was going to be really close and Michigan was going to muck it up, and it kind of looked like that early. Then I just felt like Michigan didn't. They had those opportunities to score touchdowns their first drive, and then after the Julian Saint pick, and they settled for field goals. And I said, you know what? You're not going to win this game kicking field goals because you're not going to outscore these guys. And to Ryan Day's credit, he opened it up and probably did. Like this is the game I kind of felt like was going to happen a year ago. Like if you ask people, this was probably right. But to their credit, they let their guys be guys and, let their nuts hang, so to speak. And so not surprised. One of the interesting things from a non-specific football game perspective that I noticed was there was a lot of red in that stadium.
Yes.
And here's what that tells me. Like there were a lot of Michigan alums and fans who were willing to sell their tickets, which in 2023, zero chance that would happen. Right. It definitely wasn't.
There was not even anywhere close to that much red in the stadium in 2023. No.
So my point is like you talked about, you were at Game 4 at Tigers Mariners, where it wasn't a sellout because people didn't believe that Tigers were going to hit enough to win that game. That tells me that there were Michigan people who didn't feel like they were going to win that game. There were Michigan fans that just felt like no, and they were willing to give up their seats. That stood out to me a lot. The other thing that stood out to me was I didn't think Ohio State was physically that much better than Michigan was, like from the second quarter on, running the football. Like we talked about their strength on the outside with Tate and Smith, and Julian Saint he's a lot better than I thought he was, by the way. Which he's pretty good, but he looked like a seasoned dude going through his progressions nice and slow. And like, that's something we're going to compare the two quarterbacks, I'm sure, in the next few minutes. But like the fact that they were able to just pound it down Michigan's throat.
That was shocking.
I was surprised about that. Like I thought for all of the advantages that Ohio State had, that wasn't one that I thought they had.
Yeah, and that's throughout the this would be the fifth year. Like I always watch Ohio State, watch their games, and I try to compare. I'm like, okay, can you guys run the ball? Can you guys run the ball consistently? Because if you can't, you are not going to beat Michigan. And the last 4 years up until this year, that has been consistent. Like they haven't been able to run the ball consistently, even with some good running backs. Like throughout the course of the season, they haven't been able to run the ball consistently. And then when they get into the game, it shows itself. And Michigan outruns them. They're out physical them. They out tough them. But this game, and I thought it was going to come through again because Ohio State they'd probably been the worst of their last 5 years, in terms of their overall season of how they've been able to rush the ball. Yeah. But they went into this game and, man, they, especially like you said, from the second quarter on, man, they bullied Michigan. I mean, they dominated both offensive line, defensive line. I couldn't believe it. Like how dominant they were on both sides of the ball up front.
I don't. You're right. I don't know which one side of the ball is more surprised on, because Michigan, they popped off a couple early runs, right? Early on in the first quarter, obviously were able to move the ball, but there were still a couple plays like they had a couple design calls for Bryce to carry the ball, and then but it was just one block here or there, and Ohio State's defensive line was able to get off and make a tackle for a minimal gain, and I didn't see that happening. But yeah, like the amount of first downs right there, even just like that's.
Look at the third downs, Brian. 1 for 9 for Michigan, 10 for 17 for Ohio State.
I think if you're a Michigan fan, here's the most disappointing part to this entire thing. And I saw some people like Steve Dace mention on Twitter and some others talk about how, you know what, just keep everybody healthy, run out the clock. Let's prepare for next year and get these guys developed, especially these young guys on offense, get them ready for the next season. But man, you're going to spend $13 million on a quarterback, and this is the reality of college football. Fair. It's not, I mean, probably not fair, but it's the reality. You spend $13 million on a quarterback, and he had as many passing yards as Davis Warren did a year ago. Yep. It's not good. And I don't know.
62 yards last year, Brian, 63 yards this year. That's it's usable.
Yeah. And, I don't know if it's a scheme thing. But keep in mind this. Initially, Bryce Underwood was going to go to LSU because of the way Brian Kelly develops quarterbacks. And there was an interview, and we could find it somewhere, and you could Google it, where he talked about that and how Michigan didn't develop quarterbacks like LSU did, right? And fair or not, whether it's coaching development, and I'm a coach defender, so I don't know if it's that, or it's simply this is like Bryce Underwood isn't your prototypical drop back progression reading quarterback like everybody thought he was going to be. Like Julian Sayin was that, and I didn't know, like I didn't see that coming. He really was, like he was standing in the pocket doing his thing. That was impressive. Where I think by now, this late, I think Michigan fans really had hoped that Bryce Underwood was going to be a little more developed in that regard as a pocket passer. Now, granted, Julian Sayin has a second year of college football because he's a redshirt. And so Bryce Underwood is still a freshman. Like there's obviously a ton of room. Like I feel bad being critical of him right now as a freshman. You know what I'm saying? Because he physically is very gifted and very talented, but it's the reality of playing quarterback at the University of Michigan, making more money than most of your coaching staff. Like he's going to be questioned and called out. And it was really uncomfortable, and I felt bad for him at times. Like the immediate checkdowns I felt, and they weren't good throws. Yep. And the last interception he threw the last drive of the game, like, man, that was a fastball, and that was like, oh my God, And one of the things that bothered me in like his defense too, people talked about, like I saw comments like this, like, oh, he throws too much sidearm or he does this. Like that throwing motion is kind of the trend now in football in a lot of ways, that more 3/4 motion. The studies have said that guys have said that like a little less wear and tear on their arms by doing that, the more the flick of the wrist as opposed to over the top, right? So that to me is null and void. It's more so his decisions and the ability to go through those progressions, and it just looked like he was rushing through them. So maybe that's something
really uncomfortable,
very uncomfortable.
The whole game.
That's what I mean. And maybe that's something. And he got coached up in high school. Like there are some guys at Belleville High School that I know do a good job. So, I mean, maybe it's just, like I said, there's like when you're playing in front of 110,000 people, it's not as easy as it is in the
number one defense in the country.
Against the number one defense. And again, people don't want to hear it, but man, holy heck, Matt Patricia. Like,
Michigan, you got to give him credit.
Give up 17 points all year, I think it was, in a game. Like that's just like, dude, you're a dude. So maybe next year for Michigan this offseason, like not just his development, maybe their scheme is a little bit different next year. Maybe it is less drop back stuff. Maybe it is a little more sprint out and quick and RPO and things like that. But Who knows? Like the
Or-
roster could be way different too. Like, Michigan didn't have a guy.
Get some studs receivers,
no doubt. If
in the
he
portal
has, if he has Jeremiah Smith and Tate to be able to throw to, maybe you know what I mean. Like maybe it's a little bit different as well. So, but bottom line is that that number right there, total yards 163, even with their injuries, like not good. 3.5 yards per pass is pretty. That's pretty bad.
That's not going to cut it. And my problem too, Brian, and I talked about it a ton throughout all the time we podcasted and talked about Michigan. I wanted to see Underwood more in the run game, and they tried, and it looked awful. It just looked so clunky and off, and just the timing of everything was off. And a large part of that could be with Max Bredesen being out, because he was a lot to do with their running game. He was the lead blocker on a lot of their plays, but still, like, just Underwood looked like he just looked uncomfortable. And I think a lot of it has to do with they didn't run it a lot. I think I heard David Pollock's podcast. They talked about the most designed run plays they had in any game this year was 3 for him. Designed quarterback runs, 3 total in any game.
He might not be comfortable as a runner, right? I mean, I don't know, right? I don't think that's the case, but
then what are you paying him for, man?
I mean, there's a lot. I know. I mean, it's Dan, I'm with you. There's a lot of
the passing doesn't, after 12 games, the passing doesn't look very developed, and the running game looked very clunky and uncomfortable.
No,
it's concerning.
It's very concerning
as a Michigan fan.
Correct. It's very concerning, as it should be. And like, if you're Michigan, does his feelings get hurt? Like, do you recruit any other quarterbacks right now? You know what I mean? Like, how is that? Like, who knows? Like, I don't know. It's a weird situation for Michigan right now.
It's going to be an interesting offseason, because I got to believe they got to get somebody. They got to get some type of pass coordinator, because this can't continue. This is 2 years in a row this passing game has looked like that. And they went out and spent $12 million to get the top recruit in the country to try to fix this, and it looks exactly the same.
But keep in mind, JJ McCarthy, who's arguably, he won a national championship, one of the best Michigan quarterbacks in the last 10 years. He wasn't exactly a sit in the pocket and throw for 350 yards and put up Heisman-like numbers either. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it depends on the style of play. Again, that team with J.J. McCarthy, they were able to run the ball like crazy, obviously, right? A little bit different. And the receivers, okay. But he wasn't asked to do that. I mean, so it depends on, like, I still feel, and we talked about this, months ago, Michigan's identity offensively, what is it? You've been clamoring for him running the ball more. Right? Like, it's great if they get more, more dynamic receivers, but maybe they need to be better, even more dominant in the running game. So you're not relying on,
you lose your top 2 running backs and your top lead blocker.
Sure.
I mean, that didn't help either.
No. And that's the thing. And again, like, the unfortunate thing for Michigan is nobody cared about Ohio State last year and their offensive line problems. Michigan beat them. Right? Nobody's going to care this year that, Michigan's top 2 running backs were out. And like you said, they're one of their best blockers. So unfortunately, nobody's going to care. But that's the risk you take in the new world of college football. There's a lot of money tied to him right now. He's got to be better. He just has to be better.
Well, I usually would say, like, hey, this bowl game doesn't mean anything. Who cares? But when you have this many freshmen and you had the passing game look as shoddy as it has, and you have a freshman quarterback that's continuing to develop, like, I think this bowl game means a lot. Like, I think these practices are going to mean a lot. And I think this game's going to mean a lot because the fan base is going to want to see some improvement. I mean, just straight up, like, you're going to want to see some improvement in this passing game.
Well, coaches tell you all the time, like, one of the best things about bowl games is the extra practice time that you get, right? And that's a great example why. And would you be surprised if there's a coordinator change before then? I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, if there's some movement there.
Somebody, I mean, I can't imagine they bring somebody outside, but maybe in-house. I don't know.
Well, why not?
I mean, I don't know. It seems kind of.
I mean, if you think,
I don't know.
I mean, if you think, I mean, granted, they've had 1 year offensive coordinators before. Like, I think it.
Well, I'm going to throw something at you real quick, Brian. So Underwood's 2 best games were when Shromar was suspended. And Biff Pogge was the head coach.
Yeah.
Like anything to that? Do you take anything from that? Because there was some talk about that. Like, man, he looks like the shackles are off. It looks like he's playing real comfortable and loose.
Maybe. I mean, that's possible. We just had the same question with Dan Campbell and how much he's involved with the offense. Like, is Sherrone Moore really, does he have his hands into the offense that much? Probably. I mean, maybe there's probably some truth to that. No, it could be like, and because keep in mind, as a head coach, like you're signing off on it every call that your offensive defensive coordinators make. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it doesn't, if they hear something they don't like, they're going to say no. But that's possible. I think it's more of this. I think it's more 18, 19-year-old kid is still learning how to play the position. Like he got some good coach. Like I said, there were some good guys coaching him up at Belleville. But it's still a hard position to play. Big Ten college football is still a hard position to play. Right. And because people have said like, they're still young. They had 9 wins, it's still a good team and things like that. But like if that number isn't attached to Bryce Underwood, you're thinking he's just a young quarterback that needs some more development. That's just reality.
Yeah. So we can wrap up Michigan talk with this, but I want to ask, do you think this was a successful season for Michigan this year?
I mean, compared to their previous history, no. Compared to 80% of the country, yes. You know what I mean? Compared to East Lansing, yes. The problem is you knew there was going to be a drop-off after Jim Harbaugh left and after Jesse Minter left and some of those guys graduated. I think I still thought they'd be nationally relevant, and they're not. They haven't made the playoffs the first 2 years in it. Which if you look at it that way is kind of surprising. Their standards are that high. That's a little surprising. So I know there's a lot of people, like I had lunch with a teaching friend the other day that's not a big Sherrone Moore fan. Is that fair? I mean, if you compare it to their recent history, like, yeah. I mean, yeah, if you compare it to their recent history, right? Because again, he wasn't taking over a total rebuild. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a total rebuild. But again, time will tell. I don't think he's on. I don't think people. I mean, I'm sure there are people. I saw this tweet, and I can't remember who it was from. They said that if the Michigan job was open right now, it'd be the number 1 job in the country. It would be, right? Even with all the LSU stuff, it would be, right? But Sherrone Moore, like how many schools are banging? How many openings are banging down his door? Like, hey, come here, right?
Yeah.
Right. Probably not as many as you think.
You're probably looking at some of the jobs that got left, like a South Florida, or
for sure,
really something along those lines. Yep. You're not looking at LSU or Penn State.
No, and that's and again, that might not be fair to Sherrone Moore. Like, I don't even think the guy's 40 yet. You know what I'm saying? And he's won, like he's won some games while he was there in charge. But this is an interesting offseason for them too, because this is the first time he's dealing with losing to Ohio State. And how they're responding and what the transfer portal looks like these next few months.
Well, from a Michigan perspective, as a Michigan fan, like this, and you're always going to directly compare Michigan to Ohio State, right? Yeah. And what level that they're at. And Ohio State, to me, for the first time, like truly under Ryan Day, feels like he's got it back to where it was at the heyday of Urban Meyer.
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, but like the great Urban Meyer Ohio State teams, like it feels like he's got it to that level now from every aspect. Like now he's gotten over the hump of beating Michigan. He won the national title last year. Their recruiting classes are the top in the country. Yep. Like they're rolling. They got everything going for them now. And from a Michigan perspective, it feels like back to like 2017, 2018, 2019, where top 20 program in that 10 to 20 range, but truly relevant. I don't know.
I could have
definitely several levels behind Ohio State.
Do you know how bad I want to have some fun with you right now and make a comment that what was the common denominator of the last few years, but I won't. His name, his first name is Connor. His last name rhymes with.
I
Anyway.
would also say that Jim Harbaugh leaving has a lot to do with it too.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because of what Michigan was before Harbaugh came back.
No doubt.
Michigan is now after he's gone.
No doubt.
You can talk about the Connor Stanley stuff. I get it. I get all
I'm just having some fun.
I would still bring up more of the
I'm just having
Jim Harbaugh aspect.
Some fun. Some fun at your expense, Dan. That's all.
But, and you look at the coordinators they had and what they're doing in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
And you look at Sherrone Moore. Sherrone Moore was the run game coordinator and offensive line coach. He was able to focus on that and it made the best offensive line in the country 2 years in a row. Like it says a lot when you have when your head coach is Jim Harbaugh, but then you have these guys that are going to be head coaches eventually, whether the NFL or at the college level, were underneath him. Like they had a phenomenal staff. And I know everybody's going to bring up the sign stealing, but you just look at the staff itself and the talent they had on those teams.
For sure.
Like it's a drop off. It's a drop off, no doubt, from the coaching staff perspective and from a personnel perspective. They've dropped off, and they're levels behind Ohio State right now, and they got to figure out how they're going to get back. I think they have a talented enough quarterback to do it, but they got to develop them, and they got to put them in the right positions to be successful. And they obviously didn't do it enough this year, and definitely didn't do it enough in the Ohio State game.
Yep, all true.
So we can move on, Brian. Final topic of this, and there's just so much going on right now this week. But the big one that's gone on today, college football coaching carousel, man, just going crazy. And locally, we saw it go nuts here with Jonathan Smith being fired and Pat Fitzgerald being brought in. We mentioned it last week. We kind of threw it in passing as we signed off, but I had heard that Pat Fitzgerald was being mentioned as a possible name to take over Michigan State if Smith were to get fired. And sure enough, it is Pat Fitzgerald that is going to be the next head coach of Michigan State.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. And I say that because I think people forget how hard it is or how hard it used to be to win at places like Northwestern, very similar to Vanderbilt, where the academic standards are extremely high. And the resources and the tradition aren't there compared to other schools. And he did some really good things at Northwestern. And so he's got ties to the Midwest, obviously. I think he's a great fit. He reminds me a lot of a young Mark D'Antonio. I just do. Just a toughness guy, a defensive-minded guy who I think is perfect for Michigan State right now. And the things I always talked about with Michigan State that bothered me is I never felt like they went after the big guns when it came to hiring a coach. And this is one, like, he's a name. He is. And he said he was vindicated from all the things that came out about what happened, the reasons why he was let go at Northwestern. He's been vindicated. He feels good. So, I mean, yeah, I am 100% on this hire, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, there is some baggage there from what happened at Northwestern. I know he got absolved of a lot of that, but still there are some questions, and I'm sure there's fans that are going to bring that up and question it and be concerned about that. And also the last couple of years, we're not good on the field. Not a lot of success the last couple of years. But you look at the totality of what he was able to do at Northwestern and go to 10 bowl games. For the most part, have a winning record in his time at Northwestern. And, he's going to have a lot more resources at Michigan State. He's going to have a lot more NIL money, a lot more resources to use at Michigan State. But as we've talked about, Brian, a lot when we talk about the Michigan State coaching position, it's just so tough, man. Yeah. You're surrounded by Michigan, Notre Dame, and Ohio State. I mean, 3 top 20 programs, Notre Dame and Ohio State top 10. They both were in the national championship game last year. Ohio State's the number 1 team in the country, continuing to get the top recruiting classes. It is a tough spot to recruit.
It is. I still think there's enough talent in this area and in the Midwest to be, maybe not top 5 every year or top 10 every year, but Michigan State, I'm sorry, there's the resources there to be a top 20 program, every year. There just is. And so he, I think, again, brings like an identity, a grit to what Michigan State's been missing. And, from all reports, Jonathan Smith was a great guy, and again, he won 10 games a couple times at Oregon State. I just think he was a bad fit. You know what I mean? I just do. I've talked about fit before, just being a West Coast guy, and that can be a challenge. And I think Pat Fitzgerald is a perfect fit for Michigan State and what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I think overall, and I like how they were quick with it. You know, they let Jonathan Smith finish the season. You know, they let him go the next day, and they had the next hire ready to go. And I think it puts Fitzgerald, because he probably has known, I got to imagine, for maybe a couple weeks now. So he's been able probably to start getting his staff together and start getting some things together. And, you know, it kind of allows him to kind of hit the ground running a little bit.
Yeah. I'm curious, like I think this year he was volunteered at a high school for the last couple of years. And so I wonder, the transfer portal is coming up after the first of the year. And so I wonder still, does he bring on a staff? For one, how many guys on the current staff does he keep that have already made inroads with recruiting and things like that, or already have commits for this upcoming season? But then I wonder how many guys he's going to bring in from other places where potentially transfers could join him. That'll be an interesting dynamic, which again, you didn't think about this stuff 10 years ago. But it's a reality. And so that'll be interesting to see as well. And then he ran a fun version of the spread to a degree, like everybody does, toward the end of his time at Northwestern. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what type of staff he surrounds himself with.
Yeah, experience, the experience level of the Big Ten, experience of having success in the Big Ten and success in this area. I think overall, I know from what I've seen, on Twitter and what we've seen on our Facebook page and so a lot of the comments in that, it's kind of been 50-50. A lot of people saying, "Oh, this is a good hire." Other people saying, bringing up the questions about the baggage that he's possibly bringing in, from his past, and as well as some of the lack of success of the last few years of his coaching career. But I think in general, you just look at the totality of his coaching career. I think if you're a Michigan State fan, you got to be fairly excited about this hire, and at least kind of bring some respectability back to the program. And I think he'll be able to recruit, man. In general, I think he'll be able to get some decent recruits and get Michigan State at least back to some respectability.
Yeah, I think people in the coaching community genuinely like him. You know what I'm saying? And he's a good leader and that sort of thing. And so program building, obviously he's done it already. And so, there's a lot of positives that are coming there. But I think those people that are, like you said, the 50-50 aren't so sure. Like, the question is always, and we talked about this before, if you're going to remove somebody, okay, like who are you getting that's better? Like, if you're going to do it, it has to be a better hire, right? Like, if you're going to pay a buyout, it has to be somebody better. And I go back to this, a name. He's a name, and he's had success. People could say, well, not a lot of success or not enough. Well, he won 10 games a few times at Northwestern, right? I mean, there was a time
with Big Ten title games.
You're right, 2 Big Ten title games. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sorry, like there's some good things he can do there, and so I, as a Michigan State fan, I feel good about it. The interesting point, and I know you didn't put this on our show notes, but the interesting point to me too is like, okay, the school that is floundering, that hasn't hired anybody, that is crazy to me, is Penn State.
Yeah, I know.
And that is just mind-boggling to me, because to me, talk about the jobs that are open, that's pretty close to being up there with LSU, if not ahead of LSU, right? It's close, and they still don't. Like, this carousel's happening.
There's a couple names that have come about. Brian Daboll's one from the New York Giants.
Yeah.
He has ties to Penn State. Another one that jumped out at me that I just saw, doing some research for the show, and I'm not sure where these rumors came about, but I'm hearing Josh Heupel's name from Tennessee.
I saw that as well.
As a possible option. I guess he's like the betting favorite right now.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's very, very odd.
So, like, with all of this, and I'm sure you're going to get to the Lane Kiffin stuff too. Like, you can't deny that money is a factor. Like, and people say, well, what's the difference between 30 million or 40 million or 10 million, whatever, right? Well, it's not our money. You know what I mean? It's not. It's easy for us to say. but like it's not our money. And that is a factor, right? And the ability to take care of your staff, right, with that extra money and things like that. And so, so the Josh Heupel stuff, like I in a lot of ways think Tennessee hasn't reached their ceiling under him yet. Like I still think there's room to really become. They were a playoff team a year ago to be nationally relevant. Maybe he consider it like there's maybe more behind the scenes stuff that we don't know about. Like, Vanderbilt just got to 10-2. They're willing to put up some money and things like that. Is Tennessee not willing to go all in? I don't know. Who knows? I had heard somebody
had issue with the quarterback going into this year.
Well, they did. Who left?
Ended up transferring to UCLA.
UCLA, and not a good.
Who knows what all went into that?
Correct. Like in another one I heard was somebody was talking about Arkansas. They just hired the guy from Memphis, Strickland, I think was his name. And the Arkansas thing is like, well, Arkansas is willing to put in money for basketball and baseball, NIL stuff, but not going all in football. And the logic was like, gosh, if you're an Arkansas fan, just send us back to the Big 12. We can at least compete. But like, what was the joke I heard was that like, well, somebody's got to lose in the SEC, right? So I mean, take your money and take your loss, right? Yeah, but that's So I don't. Is Tennessee like that? I guess I never thought it was. And Penn State is again with the tradition and whatnot, probably a little bit of a better job. But that was surprising when I heard that as well.
Well, I mean, Tennessee was just in the playoffs last year.
That's what I mean.
They went out to Ohio State, got smoked.
Yeah,
but it was an 8-9 matchup. I mean, they were right in the mix.
It's still the crazy thing about college football, Dan, and you know this, and football in general, it doesn't happen as much in the NFL. But like, okay, Mississippi is on the verge of going to the playoffs and hosting a playoff game, and their coach just left. Yeah. So it's not just a playoff. There's more to it. Who knows the relationship with your AD and your boosters? Who knows? If
NIL money, you're going to be
NIL money, right? Like there's so much that goes into it, and that's the weird thing about college football is like, so for all the criticisms that some of it fair when coaches leave or don't leave, we just don't know, right, what all the details are of why they're leaving.
And just one more name with the Penn State that I'm still kind of leaning towards, and that's Brian Hartline. Play caller from Ohio State, and just to seeing what has been done with Sayin and what Hartline has done throughout his career at Ohio State. Obviously, he was a great player, and then got into coaching at Ohio State and was the receiver coach. And man, it became wide receiver U at Ohio State. I mean, just producing NFL talent after NFL talent after NFL talent, and now he's moved up to being the offensive coordinator. And they're the number one team in the country. And Julian Sayin looks fantastic. He's a Heisman Trophy candidate. So I'm surprised Hartline's name hasn't come up more frequently, right, already. Yeah. But I'm wondering if he's a prime candidate for Penn State.
Yeah, that does sound like a good fit, if he wants to stay in the Big Ten too. And sounded like you said it here first that Jeremiah Smith and Julian Sayin are transferring to Penn State to be with Brian Hartline after the season, which is crazy that could even happen. But who knows? Dylan Raiola, who knows? Maybe, there's right. Who knows?
No, I'm not saying any of that. None of that.
But yeah, that would be
a Michigan fan. Sure, yeah, go, yeah, right? go to Penn State.
Right, yeah.
But I mean, in all seriousness, I do think that would be, that'd be a great option for Penn State.
I agree with you about Brian Hartline. I guess it kind of surprises me that Penn State, when this all went down, the talk was like that was the job, right? And it's going to be Brian Hartline or Brian Daboll, Like, they know football. They know ball, of course. Like they might work out great, just like Pete Carroll did at USC, because a lot of people question that after his time in the NFL. But I guess I'd be I wonder if did they even call Lane Kiffin? You know what I'm saying? Because he seems to be the guy that everybody.
Maybe they just maybe Lane
it's
Kiffin.
Possible.
He's staying down south. He's going to take.
Yeah.
He was
maybe they did.
Florida. That was it.
Yeah.
Or staying at Ole Miss, one of the three.
Right, and maybe they didn't want to deal with any more distractions and nonsense and. What Lane's going to bring. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Lane Kiffin, we could finish the podcast with this. Probably the craziest story of the week nationally. Lane Kiffin, man, Ole Miss 11-1. They're going to host a playoff game. I believe they're going to probably beat 5 or 6 in the final rankings. And Lane Kiffin is going to leave Ole Miss in the middle of a playoff run to take the LSU job. Brian, I mean, as a coach, what are your thoughts on this whole situation and the craziness of this?
Well, so You brought it up before. The calendar makes this tough for coaches, right? Because before you even get to the playoffs, you have you got to start recruiting if you're thinking about another job, and the transfer portal that's coming up, right? And so the calendar isn't ideal for these coaches when it comes to these decisions. And don't kid yourself, like LSU is a better job than Ole Miss, and people can talk about loyalty and the kids and stuff like that. Like, unfortunately, that was gone. Like, that ship has sailed with the transfers and the money, and ultimately, like, coaches, like, you're going to do what's best for you. You know what I'm saying? And the hard part was, like, we were, I was in a similar situation in our coaching career, right? Where I had an opportunity to go somewhere. It was strictly the family decision was the biggest reason why I ended up taking a different job, but I wasn't able to finish the season. And that's pretty tough. But the other weird thing was, like, Lane Kiffin supposedly was telling his offensive coaches, like, okay, if you're not on the plane to Baton Rouge, like, you're not coming. Like, if you want a job, you better get on this plane. Which I get that. Like, if you're one of those guys and you're like, okay, heck, what do I do if I stick around here? They hire somebody else and I don't have an SEC job. Like, you know what I'm saying? If it doesn't work out for me. So, like, in a lot of ways, those guys were stuck getting on that plane, right? But it's just the world of college football. And, like, right now, I saw a picture of him. Somebody tweeted out LSU's number one target recruiting wise. He already had a picture with the player. You know what I mean? And that's just the reality of the sport and what it's become.
Yeah, I want to go ahead and read this. This was Lane Kiffin's statement that he had put out. And let's see if I can read this here. Here we go. After a lot of prayer and time spent with family, I made the difficult decision to accept the head coaching position at LSU. I was hoping to complete a historic 6-season run with this year's team by leading Ole Miss through the playoffs, capitalizing on this team's incredible success and their commitment to finish strong and investing everything into a playoff run with guardrails in place to protect the program in any areas of concern. My request to do so was denied by Keith Carter, despite the team also asking to allow me to keep coaching. That's been put in question. So they could better maintain their level of performance. Unfortunately, that means Friday's Egg Bowl was my last game coaching the Rebels. While I am looking forward to a new start with a unique opportunity at LSU, I will forever cherish the incredible 6 years I spent at Ole Miss, and will be rooting hard for the team to complete their mission and bring a championship to Oxford. That some of those have been put in question of whether the players were really wanted them to stay. And that would be my question. Like, I asked this to you last week, Brian. Like, do you think he should have been allowed to finish coaching? Or do you think, like, once he had made the decision that he was going to go to LSU, like, hey, you're out, like, you're leaving, you're going to a rival, like, you're going to another SEC school. Like, no, dude, like, it's over. Like, in my opinion, I thought maybe you should have left it to the players and had a player vote and let them decide if they want Lane Kiffin to continue coaching, and let them decide. It's their team. At the end of the day, it should be the players' team, their decision.
Yeah, I mean, John Sumrall, who's going to Florida, he's still going to coach in the Tulane in the AAC championship game and a possible playoff run. So there's that. His situation is a little bit different than this, though. Like, he's going from a group of 5 to a Power 5 school. Like, that's a career step up, right? And so in this situation, like, you're going from, even though I just got done saying LSU is a better job than Ole Miss, you're right. It is still going to a conference opponent. You're going to coach another team that they're going to play next year.
Literally
right?
playing next year.
They're going to play, right? So a little bit different. So the players be a little bit better. And I talked about my situation, very similar in terms of, like, mine was a career step up, which justified it, in my opinion, right? And a chance to be closer to family. But in this instance, no, I don't think the players wanted them. Like, this was unique too, in that they got a chance to host a playoff game. You know what I'm saying? And it's a little bit different, and arguably the best. You could talk about being the best season in the school history. And, one point that I brought this up last time, and I think you questioned it, is, the fact that the playoff committee, how are they going to look at Ole Miss now? And this is I'm reading it now in the Clarion Ledger, which is a Mississippi newspaper, where playoff committee could drop Ole Miss to a road game if Kiffin leaves. So this was obviously before he left. The committee takes into account departing coaches and injured players when determining a team's ranking. So it's just crazy.
Yeah, that was something that after we had talked about, I had heard on a podcast. I'm like, oh man, that I didn't realize that like they can take into effect, a player being injured, but also a coach leaving. They can use that as part of the criteria of how they're going to rank these teams, which is
Dan,
crazy.
I think, man, you and I, if we could do one of these shows where we just talk about all these different college football topics, like the fact that a team is being punished, like those players are being punished going 11-1 for their coach leaving. That's insane. So basically you're saying what happened on the field isn't as important as Lane Kiffin leaving. That drives me nuts. That's right. That's
not right. It's not right.
It's not right. And you're talking about whose resume is better. Like, what kind of garbage is that? Like, Jesus, like, I hate it. That's why I don't like college basketball as much as other people when it comes to the turn. Well, their resume is this and they should be man, screw that. Like, who did what on the field to qualify to go? And it's not a system to have that. You know what I mean? And that's tough. And so it's just a weirdly unique situation only to college football that no other sport has to deal with, right?
Which could you imagine an NFL coach leaving? It would be like, I don't know, like Ben Johnson, right?
Yeah.
Let's say, right? He's got the Bears rolling, but hey, the Pittsburgh Steelers job opens up. And he gets offered this Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, I could take the Bears to the playoffs. We're in a great spot, but
it's Pittsburgh.
It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I can't turn it down. They're offering me a ton of money. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers. All the tradition and everything. Like insanity. But that's basically what's going on right here.
Yeah, that is exactly what's going on. And it's unfortunate, but he'll probably be successful at LSU. And then he'll look to his next job and he'll burn them just like he has. Burn them again.
One of two things are going to happen. Either he gets fired and he regrets not staying at Ole Miss because he could have been at Ole Miss forever if he wanted to, or he burns LSU by going to the NFL.
Yeah,
I think that's probably more likely.
Yeah, I think he'll have success there. I think it's really hard not to have success there. But what's funny is like, I did see a comment where he said something about, he regretted or he felt really bad about leaving Tennessee after a year, but then he went to USC and it was something like couldn't turn it down, dream job. But what's funny is, we got a close friend of ours, Jason, who's a big Raiders fan. And he had talked about when Lane Kiffin was with the Raiders and that all went down. And Al Davis was really critical of Lane. Right. And Jason's like, yeah, who'd have thunk it that Al Davis would have been the voice of reason. Right. And talking about
fired him on the tarmac. Do you remember that press conference?
Yeah.
That crazy press conference. Oh my God. Yeah, like PowerPoints and different boards up. It was a circus. Absolute circus. And it's been that way for Lane Kiffin's entire career, man.
It has been.
He brings a circus with him wherever he goes. And he's tried to talk about, I'm changed, I'm matured. And it's the same old stuff, man. The same old stuff.
It is the same old stuff. And he has success. And that's what you know what
fascinating.
You know what you're getting.
And I texted it to you, man. Next year, LSU at Ole Miss. If they're both good, I hope it's like earlier in the season, just kind of guarantee that it's a big game. But man, is that going to be something? No.
Okay.
Him just walk into the stadium. Poof.
So let me ask you this though, Dan. Like, I think Charlie Weiss Jr. also got on the plane to go to LSU right now, right? Let me see if I think there were some other coaches that went as well. If you're Trinidad Chambliss at Ole Miss quarterback, right? Like,
what if he gives you that ultimatum?
That's a conversation they've all had. It is. Like, is there going to be an exodus of Ole Miss offensive dudes after they lose? Whenever they lose whenever their season?
After they lose, or win, you never know. Like, they're a good team. Like. I would after all this, it'd be hard to imagine, but you never know. It could be a rallying cry that motivates them. Stuff like this, 18 to 22-year-olds, man.
I know.
Something like this.
There was I did see a cool video. It wasn't a video; it was more just an audio of the players' meeting where they announced that the defensive coordinator was sticking around, and all the players cheered, and it sounded pretty cool. Like they were fired up. Pete Golding is sticking around to be the permanent head coach, not an interim guy. He's the guy. That was pretty cool to hear. So you're right.
Okay, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize they actually named a head coach going forward. So that would put position like if you're an assistant coach. I mean, why wouldn't you stay at that point? You know, I mean, they're in a tough position regardless, but I would think that would give you more incentive to stay, knowing now that like, okay, they're not going to hire somebody from outside the school. They're going to stick with this defensive coordinator, somebody that's been on staff. So that should secure your job.
Maybe. Potentially, maybe Golding didn't agree with any of those offensive guys, or maybe he wanted a different flavor. Maybe maybe he worked with somebody else somewhere that he'd rather bring on. You know what I'm saying? Maybe still LSU is still LSU, and maybe the money's better. Maybe the connections are better, right? You know, you never know with that.
Those are all conversations that have to be made quickly.
Yes.
Just oh my God, there's so many things about this that are just so wild. They're going to make a movie about it at some point. I mean,
it'd be
30 sometime.
It would be a great 30 for 30. Yeah, it would be. But interesting. Yeah. It'll be interesting. And then Tuesday night we have the latest installment of the playoff rankings, and we'll get an idea going into those ever important conference championship games.
One more thing though that's interesting. Okay, I know we're going super long. Okay, but the ACC championship, Duke is in it with 5 losses.
Yeah.
Virginia's in it too. I mean, and they're kind of right on the fringe of the playoff rankings. But they're a 2-loss team that nobody thinks should be in the playoffs. And then you got Miami, who looked absolutely dominant, has a win over Notre Dame, and they're on the outside looking in. So like if Duke wins, right? They can't put Duke in, right? But they'd be the ACC champion.
I wouldn't think. I mean,
I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but it seems it just seems really odd to me that Duke could get in with Miami not getting in.
I think if Duke wins, I think you don't have anybody from the ACC.
Miami might be ranked like top 10.
It would be if it's. I mean, yeah. But they might not be. Like if they, I mean, Tuesday is going to say a lot. Like because Miami,
hopefully, I'm sure they're going to ask them. Who knows what kind of answer you're going to get?
Sure,
but hopefully they better ask them. Like, hey, if Duke wins, what happens to Miami?
Sure, have to because there's Miami can't do anything to improve their stock, right? They can't do anything. I mean, the thing is I don't think Duke played. I don't think they played Miami. I don't think they played. Let me see. They didn't play Miami. They didn't play. Let me see who else is ahead of them. It'd be silly. I don't think. They didn't play Miami. They didn't play SMU. They didn't play Georgia Tech. They didn't play Pitt. They didn't play any of the teams out.
I mean, this is the whole problem I have with all this.
Yes,
this league expansion and not having divisions. Correct. Everybody thought, oh, this is great. You're going to get the top 2 teams against each other. No, it's not great.
No,
now you got this ridiculous, unbalanced schedule across the board.
Yeah, I mean, if you again, like I'm not always keen on automatic bids because, like we've said, if Duke were to win and get an automatic bid, but somebody else like Vanderbilt gets left out, right? Or let's say Alabama gets left or whatever, that's the problem, right? But again, to your point though, it's in a lot of ways this is worse because they're not playing each other and you're running into this situation.
Horrible.
And the league and the conference championships typically aren't. I mean, okay, to say they mean nothing in the long-term grand scheme of things, they don't mean anything. I still think the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, in a situation like this, it doesn't mean anything. Like when you have Duke in there and they haven't played anybody, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I still think it means it means a little bit.
I guess. If Duke is the ACC champion, nobody's going to look at them as the ACC champion.
I mean, they will.
It's really Miami.
They will. They can like talk about it when they go recruit, where
the trophy and
banners and all that. And, I know I mean, if they're gonna, like we said, if they're gonna go all NFL style, then make it all the way NFL.
Yeah, you can't have these automatic bids.
Nope.
You can't. You're gonna have a group of 5 team get in over
That's
Vanderbilt.
not a fan.
It's
Nope.
absurd.
That's another argument. Yep, we could have. Not a fan.
All right. Well, we covered a lot here, Brian. There's a lot going on.
That was that our longest?
Kind of getting into it.
Was that our longest show? Man, we're gonna wrap this up, and people are gonna love it. That was a good one.
Yeah, it may have been. There's gonna be a lot of clips to cut out of this.
That was a good one.
But that will do it, man. That will do it. Yeah, for Brian Barnes, I'm Dan Murphy. It's been Inside the Coach's Office, and we'll see you again next week.